And we're live. Welcome everybody to another DoneJS contributors meeting. With you as most of the time is me, Justin, and the rest of the DoneJS core contributors team. We started a little bit late today because we actually ran over Google Hangouts maximum amount of people. And we might have 2 other people joining us, but we do have a new recruit, Sarath. I don't know if you want to introduce yourself. I know you know Prashant. I think you're from Bangalore, right?
Yeah, right.
What do you do in Bangalore?
Sorry?
What do you do in Bangalore? Do you work for ShoreTel as well, or?
Yeah, I'm working as a contractor in ShoreTel.
Awesome.
I've been working there for like 6 months now.
Cool. And what do you do for fun in Bangalore?
Totally, I do for fun. I have a lot of friends in Bangalore. Mostly it will like hanging out with friends on the weekends.
Awesome.
And I do have a PlayStation.
Are you or one of your kids a big fan of the Minions and Despicable Me?
It's not me, it's my son.
Your son? Nice. Awesome. Well, what we do for these meetings is we just go through and give a status. Everybody just gives their status, and then at the end of the meeting, we just bring up whatever topics there are to discuss for that week. I will speak, and then if you want to interject with anything at any time, just feel free to talk about it. Status is we try to move pretty quickly through everybody. So my status is I made it possible for computes to always have like the correct value no matter what other events might have just happened. Very happy with that. At the end of this, I can give a little brief explanation. I've already given some people Bitovi, but what the change was, how it works, that thing. I'm also about halfway through the ATM guide. I posted a link in the notes where you can see kind of the final output of it, the JS bin for it. Next week, we're really close to releasing 3.0. We've got a few bugs and maybe browser incompatibilities to work through. So hopefully that will be released to NPM. Maybe not the whole website migrated, everything, but at least something that people can start upgrading to. It's a stable API that we're not going to change things. We'll migrate the sites and then starting to figure out the evangelism effort for 3.0 is what I hope to do next week. So that's my status. We'll go David next, just left to right.
I'm on the right for me. No, it's okay. So I got all the tests passing in IE9 and 10, Safari, Chrome, and Firefox. And they're running automated in IE10, Safari, and Firefox. We're still having some issues. Firefox and Chrome. We're still having some issues with Source Labs in Safari and IE9. And someone probably should run them in IE11 at one point. I hope it's not an Edge. I hope it's not going to cause any problems because it's been actually a better browser than it used to. But just to make sure and maybe add it to the list as well. And I think, yeah, so based on those tests, everything seems to be passing. So I don't see any major cross-browser issues for the release. Hopefully, including next week, we'll be able to add more browsers to the browser matrix and make sure that they're all running. And I've also been doing a Node Bitovi training this week with 2 other people. So that's what we're going to wrap up today. We're building a picture sharing app. Maybe we can sell it like Instagram. We'd be okay with 11 billion. The 19 billion is doesn't have to be. So yeah, that's it for me.
Awesome. Thanks, David. Julian?
Yeah, not much for me. we fixed yesterday, I thought, a bug in Simple DOM. Maybe the reason was that we used an older Steel version. So anyone who runs into build errors or build syntax errors, maybe upgrade to Steel 1.0. There's a better transpiler Babel. I think it's newer Babel, and we also had better matching for AMD or ES6 modules, so we improved that. So if anyone run into issues with that, maybe give Steel 1.0 a try and check it out. That's for me.
Also, because we have a new person here, we should each say, just like Sarath did, we should say where we are and like what we do in our free time, I guess. So I'm Chicago. Besides hanging out with my daughter, I play a lot of basketball. David, you want to quickly say yours?
Yeah, I'm in Vancouver, all the way on the West Coast, with wind when we go from west to east. And I usually, on the weekends now in the summer, I went rock climbing. There are some beautiful spots. The license plate of the province actually says beautiful British Columbia, and that's not a lie. It's quite a nice place.
Awesome. Julian?
Yeah, Germany, Stuttgart. So, and my hobby is really, I'm a big nerd, so I'm playing Battlefield in my free time. So if anyone plays Battlefield, you're welcome.
Which one? The latest one?
4. But the
Four.
the Battlefield 1 is released, I think, in October 24th. So, woo! Weekend.
I played 2 all the time, like 10 years ago. I haven't played 4 though. It's a fun game though. Cool. Kevin, you're next.
Cool. Yeah, I'm Kevin. I live in the suburbs of Chicago. My hobbies are all kind of on hold. My son is 8 weeks old as of yesterday, so that's pretty much all I'm doing other than sleeping. So let me share my screen. I have been working on the last few things for CAN 3.0, so I'll show a few of these. The first one is this templated element syntax for event handlers. So now we want to push people, if they're trying to bind to the element, then they should be adding this element into their handler definition, or whatever you call this. The next thing that I worked on is being able to pass a map or a define map or whatever, an observable as the options when you create a control. So basically when you create a control, you can now pass this an observable, and it will merge in any defaults. So like in this case, test end event wasn't set on this map, so it'll set on the map, it'll set a test end event property, and then it'll use that as the options for the control. And you can do the same thing with define map, but you should define everything that's going to be in your defaults, or it'll throw an error. Next thing I worked on was this arguments special keywords. So people have trouble when they're triggering custom events. They aren't able to get all of the arguments that were passed to the event, or that were passed when they triggered the event using the new binding syntax. So that's what we want to allow. So now you can basically put arguments in your event handler, and it'll actually pass you whatever was passed in. So like in this test, you can kind of see, I guess this isn't a great example, but you could trigger this with an array of arguments, and you would get those here. And then the last thing I've been doing is trying to get all of the tests.
Remember, Kevin, you can't trigger it with an array of arguments unless you're using jQuery.
Right. Good point. That would have confused a lot of people, I think. And then the last thing I'm doing is trying to get all of the tests to work. So basically, I found that the can-stash bindings tests aren't running in the main CanJS repo. So I tried adding that, but there were some issues because it was using an old version of jQuery, like jQuery 1.1 that's loaded by func unit. And so I added in can jQuery to make that work for those tests, and that ended up breaking some other tests, or I guess exposing some issues in other tests. So I'm working on getting those fixed. That's it for me.
Awesome. Thanks, Kevin. Matthew?
Hello. I'm working on, first the introduction part. Yeah. I'm Matthew Phillips. I'm from the United States, the great Commonwealth of Kentucky. What do I like to do? I like to kayak, but I really haven't done it that much this year. Other than that, I like watching sports and whatnot. So, anyways, what have I been doing this week? I've been doing a few things, which include, I fixed the titles on the website, which is cool. There was yesterday, Marshall noticed that we were still getting these old warnings when using less and steel because we were using synchronous XHR, which is the default. So I fixed that to use async. There's been a lot of changes in CANutil DOM adder in the last week or so to make that a little bit more expansive. That's kind of internally things. I don't have anything huge right now. I was taking on, there was an issue about adding the ability for adder callbacks to like have subtemplates. So I was doing that because that's, it's a fun thing to work on. But if there's something more critical, I could take something else. Like I could help Kevin maybe or something. I'm doing a half day today, by the way, so I'll be gone in a couple hours. But that's me.
So you're going kayaking?
I'm not going kayaking. I wish I was. I'm not.
Cool. Prashant?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. So, my status, let me share my screen first.
Tell us about yourself first.
Okay, so I'm Prashant. I'm based in Bangalore, and in my free time, I usually like to do photography. I'm also fond of adventure sports, so whenever I get a chance, I like to go for those adventure sports activities. So that's it. Okay, so this is the issue that I was working on. This is on CANutil. We have to so we have to make the Ajax handle the capitalization for the type property. So the fix was trivial, but I ran into an issue writing a unit test for this one. So I checked with Justin, and he gave me some feedback on how to write a unit test. So I have the fix ready, and I made changes to the unit test as well, and the tests are passing. So my plan is to submit a pull request shortly after this meeting for this issue. The second issue I was working on was this one, which is that we have to provide the first and last helpers for the bound each loop. Now I misunderstood this problem. I thought that by percentage first and percentage last, we are supposed to provide the first and the last elements of the collection that we are iterating over. But then I realized that the problem is really about specifying whether the element under iteration is really the first or the last element. We have to provide boolean values instead of the value of the element itself. So I'll continue working on this issue next week. That's my plan.
Awesome. Thanks, Prashant. So at this point, we all did our statuses. Any topics people want to discuss? No? I wanted to show off the ATM demo that I made.
One question, maybe then I can start. Is there a plan for having the 2.3 docs in the new DoneJS site?
Yeah, we'll link to them. So they'll be somewhere on the homepage.
So, but there's
or even maybe on the title bar.
They're not integrated anymore. So they have there's an older homepage then.
Yeah. No,
Okay.
it's possible we could integrate them, but it also might not work super well. So it's not worth it. At least it would take a lot of effort to make that happen.
Is it like a bitdocs document.js problem? Is that the problem that you see?
Yeah, and plus the theme is different and all of that kind of stuff.
I made it in.
So, hey Mark.
Thanks for that link.
Go on.
What changed?
Sorry, what'd you say?
Oh, I've just been trying to get in this conversation for like several reboots. One hijacked conversation with a bunch of guys from Asia who were just as surprised that I was. Like, there's been some weird stuff going on.
Were those the Funk Unit? Are those the people who want to contribute to Funk Unit?
Oh, maybe.
They're from Massachusetts, but they are Asian. You shouldn't be.
All I know is there were some pretty surprised people in that hangout, so I left.
Was that you found the link that I sent?
I just went to like Hangouts, like the Hangouts homepage, and then there's like a little schedule, and I just clicked on DoneJS contributors meeting, and yeah, it was weird.
Oh.
It made me uncomfortable. I don't know. Maybe it wasn't so weird.
Oh, you should.
How many of them were there?
Okay. I think that's probably where they are, and now I feel bad.
There were 3.
I don't know how that got miscommunicated. What link were you clicking on?
Let me see.
Can you go back there and actually work on here? If they're all there.
Let me see if I can find them.
Anyways, hopefully they join. Let me try to salvage as much of this meeting as I possibly can. And let's take a quick look at the ATM example. Hey, there he is.
Yes, finally.
How's it going?
Good. How are you guys?
We're great. Thanks for joining us. I was worried. I didn't know where you were, and then I think Marshall. Were you already in a room with Marshall somehow?
Okay, I thought somehow I landed in somebody else's conversation, but yeah, that's
something happened. I saw you for a minute there.
Oh my gosh! So it's Chinmay. Am I pronouncing it right?
Yes, that's right.
Hey Chinmay, Justin.
Hey, Justin.
I'm very happy that you could join us. Sorry about the miscommunication. I tried to invite you through the Hangout. I sent the link to. Hopefully those should work. If not,
yes,
like
link to us.
after this meeting.
Okay.
After this meeting, let's figure out how to get you the right link. Sorry about that.
No, not a problem. I think I did something wrong. I'm not sure.
No worries, no worries. So we kind of already did introductions a little bit because Sarath is also a new contributor. We all kind of went through and said where we are and like what we like to do, and I'll just give mine again so that not everybody has to give theirs again, and Marshall will give his.
Okay.
I'm Justin. I like to play basketball. I'll add a new one. I also like to watch a lot of movies or listen to other people's reviews on movies on YouTube. I don't know why I like that so much, but I do. Marshall, you want to say where you are and what you like to do in your free time?
Yeah, I live in southern Utah, so like I'm right smack dab in the middle of 5 national parks, and I've been to 2 of them.
Okay.
And yeah, so you can tell that I don't really like hiking all that much, or I would have not been a degree. I have 5 kids, so I like keeping up.
Oh,
That's about it.
okay.
Do you just play that harp in the background to keep them soothed and under control? Is that?
Yeah, the harp, and then there's like weird paintings too. Yeah, just weird stuff happens in southern Utah.
Yeah, I've been to Utah actually, Zion National Park. I think it's in Utah. I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
that's one of the big 5 that are surrounding me. So
Yeah.
you've been pretty close to my house, turns out. So yeah, I guess I do like to I like to make music, but yeah, it's kind of taken the back burner since baby number 5 was born a month ago. So
Oh, okay. Congrats.
thanks.
So Chinmay, where are you from? Where are you at? And what do you like to do in your free time?
Yeah, sure. So I'm from India. I came to US for my master's, and right now I'm in Boston, Massachusetts. And in my free time, I like to just roam around. I like hiking a lot. I've been to a lot of places in US here. I love it here.
What's your favorite hike?
I think not many here on East Coast, but in Utah, I really like the Angel's Landing.
Yeah, very pretty.
It's pretty good. Yeah.
I have been to that one.
You been to that one?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's pretty. I'll never go back. Too scary.
Yeah, I enjoyed it a lot actually. I've done many hard ones, even in India. So yeah, it was good.
Awesome. And then you work for MATLAB, I think?
Yeah, so MATLAB is one of our products. The company name is MathWorks actually. So we have 2 products, MATLAB and Simulink.
So are you happy that you torture a lot of non-math and engineering majors with MATLAB
Actually,
projects?
I think hardly anybody outside math background knows about our product, I believe. So and
Oh really? I felt like at U of I everybody had like
Yeah.
the math class everybody has to go through uses MATLAB for projects.
Yeah, and I actually work on online platform of MATLAB, which is MATLAB Online actually. So I work on that because there are a lot of people from a lot of different backgrounds here in MathWorks, robotics or I don't know, neural network and whatnot. So many different backgrounds. I'm more on the
Awesome.
web side of it though.
And one thing I just realized is you work with Binode, and he was supposed to come to this. Was he also in the wrong place? Can you send him a link maybe that I sent you?
Actually, I pinged him a few minutes back when I couldn't join this call, but I didn't get any reply from him. It's possible that he's in some meeting or something like that.
Cool. No problem. Anyways, thank you so much for joining us. It's great to have you.
My pleasure.
Great to have you here. So we already finished our statuses, and now the next thing is just like open topic discussion time. And at this point, a lot of people are busy, and if they have to get to a meeting or whatever, that's totally fine. This is just to like talk about, whatever topics people posted in the contributors meeting post. So.
Okay.
With that, I just wanted to go through the ATM guide. That was my topic that I wanted to talk about. I'm trying to find what I just did with it. I got like monitors everywhere. One second here. All right. I'm gonna go through it. So this is the guide. Let me just quickly walk through. If no one's seen this before, it's a ATM where you can put in your PIN number or put in your card number, put in your PIN number. It's verified. You can do a deposit, put in how much you want to deposit, and then it takes you to the kind of transaction successful, and you can do another transaction. I'm going to withdraw from savings. I'm going to withdraw $1,000. and then I can exit. I could keep doing transactions, or I can exit, and then it'll bring the person back to, back to the beginning. And this is what this guide is really about, is how to deal with state in a CanJS application. What I mean by that is these kind of state diagram problems where you have pretty complex state. And the one nice thing about CanJS is because it has true observables, you can have federated state. And what I mean by that is you can have, or you could think of it as encapsulated state. This guide, you build a card and its behavior, and you build a transaction and its behavior and its state transitions. And then there's the ATM page transitions are built on top of that. So like an ATM, all the ATM's transitions are all these like kind of darker blue points. These are its state, the pages that it's going to be on. And then the pieces it uses inside of it, transactions or cards, they have their own kind of differentiated state. And you can kind of combine substates into, a composite state. And that's what this is really about, is just showing that this is something that, because CanJS has observables, it can do really, really well compared to, other frameworks without true observables. And the testing strategy is really nice for them. So basically, the guide's going to walk people through building tests. So here, like I'm going to build a card. Well, a card has a PIN and a number. It can be unverified. And then when I verify it, it moves to the verifying state. And then eventually the state is going to change to verified. And then I can implement card with a number and a PIN, a state of unverified, and a verify method that updates the state as it goes. And that's really what it is on a high level. You're just building up the card, and then you're building up a transaction, and then testing it, and then eventually you build up the ATM itself, and you walk through all of the steps that a user would have to go to, like adding a card, adding a PIN number, choosing an account, then setting the amount that they want to transact, and then executing the transaction, and then checking that there's a receipt, and then making sure that the state moves through every one of those steps correctly. So this, I think, is a really useful demonstration of kind of the powers of observables, and I don't know, hopefully, and then actually showing how to test a CanJS application. So I'm hopeful that this will be a really good demo for people to learn from. So
are there components involved, or is there just one template?
There's just one component, which is just an ATM component, which really has nothing to it except for a few helpers. But it's mostly the ATM view model.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Yeah, like most applications are really just in the view model and the models. I could just actually just dump it.
But it's really one.
I could do it without any. Yeah, unless you consider in some ways, I mean, these are kind of models because they do make requests, but there's something in between these are somewhat in between a model and, a card is somewhat in between a view model and a model. It's got data that is related to the UI. Maybe for better or for worse. This isn't a pure model, and I think most of the time you do want pure models, but this, because a card, if you think about it, is just either valid or invalid. I don't know. This really has state, whether the card has been verified to the UI, this particular UI or not. And same with transaction. A transaction is either executed or not executed, and that's really that's not really modeled. That's not something that's actually on the model necessarily. I guess there could be a list of transactions, but a lot of times what you're just dealing with is like the final amount of your accounts, where there isn't a true model, which is a count. So it's kind of these hybrid things that deal with state on their own, which is related to the UI. So they're kind of model-ish view models a little bit. But at least for when you're dealing with this kind of application, it really fits in well, I guess. My hope is that somebody eventually will come to CanJS, see the ATM guide, and then I will be someday using an ATM built on CanJS. And then I will have a funny little trick that just cashes out all of the money because I'll have hacked in, like if this is an ATM and it's Justin Meyer's PIN. I could just throw out all the money. So anyways, I think hopefully it's a good, I think this will be a good guide for people to learn from.
So what was what was the part that you got stuck on where you had to the compute changes that you were making?
So why did I spend a whole week working on one little problem? So the problem was when this ATM on, like I'm listening to the state changes, it's a result of changing some other computed value, like I added a PIN number, so the state eventually is going to change to choosing transaction. And eventually I'm going to change it to deposit info. And the problem was in deposit info, if I change the current transactions amount to 120, state wasn't being, the current transaction state to becoming ready because now it has an amount and an account. So everything is ready so you could actually execute the transaction. This was not, this was still like invalid or not ready or whatever the state is of, you don't need to have everything you need to actually execute a transaction. Because it was kind of in the callback of this change in state, and it was dispatching that thing's event handlers, so it wasn't in a position to really update the value here. And similarly, if I called execute, these weren't changing as well. So I guess thank you, because this segues into the next point, is computes now have the ability to always keep their state up to date. Essentially what happens is if you ever read a compute now, any events that might have been in kind of, not dispatched yet, but wanted to be dispatched, so like when we change amount here, previously there would be in the future an amount change event. What happens now is if you read a compute, it's going to make sure that all events are flushed, and then it will check kind of the list of potential computes that need to be updated. And if the state value needs to be updated, it will be updated synchronously and immediately so that the value of ready will come out. So that was a big change. So those are my topics. It looks like Binod just joined us. How's it going? I don't know if you can hear me. It looks like he's frozen. I think he's frozen. Does anybody else have another topic they want to discuss? We can't hear you, Binod. To meet you. We will maybe try to refresh. Yeah, your video's frozen and your audio. And it says you're muted, so you might need to click the unmute button. Anybody else have any other topics they want to discuss?
Hey everyone, can you hear me?
Hey Binod, how you doing? He just refreshed. There he is coming back.
Hey everyone, this is Binod. Can you hear me?
Hey, yeah, Binod, how you doing?
Hey, yeah, nice to see you guys. I'm good. Thanks for
sorry about
bringing me in.
Thank you. Sorry about any confusion with this how to join this hangout.
No, absolutely not. I was in a meeting, so with Chinmay's help, I got a link real quick on my IM, and here I am for half of the meeting. So great to see you guys.
So we all went through our status, and we also gave a little bit of, we also said where we were from and what we like to do in our free time. And since everybody's gone, I'll go one more time and then ask you if you want to share the same information. So yeah, I'm Justin. I'm in Chicago, and what else? My ones that I already said I like to do is play basketball and listen to movie reviews. I guess I'm also into politics a lot lately, like a lot of political podcasting I listen to now because the elections are out. So,
right. I can go next.
What about you?
Yeah, I manage the web and mobile tools team here, and hence I'm interested in Funkinit because we're deploying it big time. You guys will be glad to know at our company here.
Awesome.
And I'd love to be enhancing it. We're doing a lot of touch-related stuff, so I'm really hoping to talk to you guys about what we can do there. My hobbies, interests, I play ping pong. I'm pretty good at it. If you guys want to play me sometime. I play a little bit of guitar, a little bit of keyboard, singing is my hobby. And yeah, I'm in astronomy. There's a number of things I'm interested in. Just learning new frameworks, JavaScript, Heroku. I just love trying things on the cloud and trying new frameworks, that kind of stuff. So this is great. Hopefully we can try and make a difference.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm so jealous of people who can sing. But when it comes to ping pong, we had a fun. So we recently had our Bitovi kind of retreat. And Brian is the other kind of founder of Bitovi who talked a big game about his ping pong skill. Yeah, you can play him at some point and hopefully crush him. That's what I would hope you would serve him quite well. Yeah. So yeah, we're very excited to have you working on Funkinit. I would just say anytime, schedule a meeting with me, and I happily walk you through any of the code. I think we're very open to pairing, so it's like, hey, we want to add this feature. Anybody at Bitovi can take like a couple hours out of their day and just be like, here, let's just pair program it to get you started on anything at any time.
Right.
Sarath, that goes for you. And, just the best way to do it is just Gitter. Or I'll send you all the core team's emails. You can just email any of us and just send a Google Calendar invite, and that's kind of tends to be the best way of awesome. Contacting us. So yeah, the Funkinit room I'm in, and I tend to post the contributors meetings here too. And we're just all kind of in these main core project rooms hanging out. If you have any questions.
Great.
So that's the best way to work with us. Cool. Anything else anybody wants to talk about?
If no one else had anything, I want to talk about KUnit, jumping right in. As you probably already know from my post on GitHub issues, I have been having trouble upgrading to KUnit 2 specifically, or even as early as 123, I think, of KUnit. Apparently, either KUnit has changed in a certain way or Funkinit has. I'm not sure which one, where the usage of f.open and close specifically in module start and module end is primarily the blocking factor, I believe. I don't know if there's other issues, but that's at least one issue I know of. So I don't know if anyone have any insights or have done some similar investigations. I'd love to be able to upgrade to KUnit 2.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have to change because KUnit 2 works more like Jasmine and Mocha.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna have to change how the kind of attachment to start and stop works
mm-hmm.
to fit with that. I would just say, if this is something that you're eager to do, we can get someone to spend a day on it next week.
That would be awesome.
To move forward. Yeah, so there's a few people, I'll probably have, let's, if there's a day that works for you best, like just let me know, and I'll probably have someone spend a day before that looking into it, and then we can kind of meet and discuss what needs to happen.
Great. Yeah, thanks.
It might only take like a day. I don't think it'll take that long.
Hopefully, yeah. Thank you.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah, great. Funky needs a lot of love, and if you guys can deliver that, that would be amazing.
So what's the plan for
Awesome. Anything else?
CanJS 3.0? So I talked to a few people in Gitter, and they are confusing because don't know if they can starting writing CanJS 3.0. They don't know if is there or when they can start writing 3.0 because is there any plans? Because
the answer,
I think we are maybe we are a little bit late. Or what is to do to finalize CanJS 3.0?
So yeah. So like I just said, you can start working on. I mean, my suggestion would be not to start until we actually release 3.0 to NPM, but that was hopefully going to come out today. I don't think it is because we still got a few other issues to work through, but the plan is to cut to NPM 3.0 everything, and that way we're going to follow Semver. So everything at that point, we're not going to break compatibility. So that's why, until then, it's dangerous because I just made a humongous change to computes. I didn't really break much of the API, but that stuff is always very possible. Like even now, well, we just did migrate one application over, so we're pretty sure it's really about API stability, right? Whether you could use 3.0 even if there's bugs, but the API is going to change. Well, then that's fine because we'll just quickly get in there and fix that. I think once we do 3.0, which should hopefully happen extremely short, once we get all tests to pass basically in all browsers, then we release 3.0, and then I think it is good for people to start switching because there's really no reason not to. I mean, the reasons not to is just like the website isn't working fully everywhere. The new website, the docs haven't, we haven't pushed the old site out somewhere else and kind of made it so when you go to canjs.com, you're still in 3.0. There hasn't been like an official launch announcement, but a lot of the stuff to actually be used, you could absolutely do, and I would encourage people to start upgrading to 3.0.
So DoneJS is right for is using for CanJS, or how is it with DoneJS?
So not fully yet. That's our plan immediately after is to have a DoneJS for CanJS 3.0.
Okay.
So if you're using the problem for DoneJS 1.0, the plan is and has been for a little bit is release 3.0, then release Steel 1.0, and then release DoneJS 1.0.
Yeah, and how far is it between? What do you think is what the days or how much week?
Timeline? Matthew can answer for Steel better than I could. I think it's pretty there. I don't know if there's.
Yeah, I mean it's more or less there. We wanna change all the docs to use Steel config and stuff like that. I'd have to go through the issues. It's been a while, but nothing major. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it might take a week to do that. It might take a couple weeks, maybe at most.
My guess is it'll be like a month and a month. Yeah. My guess is it'll be we'll release CanJS, and then it's going to take us a month to make sure that SteelJS is really where we want it to do a 1.0. It's pretty close. And then maybe a month more than that for DoneJS. DoneJS mostly is just CanJS and SteelJS anyway, so there's not much to do there other than making the generators all change, the guides. It's that kind of stuff that takes a while.
We could, we could release. We already have a version of DoneJS that works with the Can 3.0 pre-release stuff. So when we actually release 3.0, we could make a new version of that, call it a beta or something, that points to 3.0 instead of all the pre stuff.
Yeah.
And, you know, people.
What's the trouble with DoneJS? So it's this SSR stuff, or?
Yeah, I mean, there's DoneJS projects that use CAN 2.3, so those have to be upgraded, and they have been upgraded to the pre-releases, but just not to the final release.
Yeah, there's not really anything code-wise in DoneJS, what would come out in DoneJS that is a problem, like, that we really have to change. It's mostly just the generators and the docs and things like that. Just all have to be updated. The guides all have to be updated. It's that stuff that needs to be put in place. Code-wise, I don't think we're gonna have to add any features or make any changes other than docs, really, generators.
There's some issues about the DoneJS templates that we might want to put into 1.0 so that you can like customize template names and stuff like that.
What do you mean customize template names?
So like if you want, so right now the templates writes to a hidden directory like .donejs/templates, and people want to be able to add their own templates into that file and have them work. And right now it doesn't do that. It's like a hard-coded list inside of the generators.
Oh. Yeah, to me that's more of like a feature, and that can be like DoneJS 1.1. Like,
yeah, it's kind of hard to say what is a breaking API change for something for the CLI tool, but and it shouldn't take long to do that anyway. Yeah. But there are some small things we might want to do.
Okay. Yeah, if we can fit it in, then we can fit it in. But like I don't see. I would much rather have 1.0 out earlier than later, and then release even a 2.0 DoneJS. Like the thing is post all of this stuff, the version numbers of things I imagine are going to go soaring through the river, because essentially CanJS is going to take on the sum of its parts for its version number, and then DoneJS is going to do the exact same thing for CanJS plus SteelJS. So DoneJS's version, I would imagine we're going to be cutting the new version quite a bit. At least like a 1.1, 1.2, 1.3 until we break something in CanJS, and then or SteelJS, and then that gets bumped up as well. So we should have like 1.80 version of DoneJS. Cool. Anything else?
Do we want to talk about that helper arguments issue, or we just seemed like from your comment that it's probably not worth it?
Yeah. Do you want to share your screen about that? Do you have that like something to show?
I've got the issue. So yeah, one thing that we had talked about, Justin and I, the other day, is maybe there's a bunch of code in here that handles passing arguments to helpers. So like this is active helper, by default will get the context and the scope, and then make active gets context element and the event. And we were talking about whether or not we should remove those implicit arguments, so since people can pass them explicitly if they want to, using call expressions. So that's kind of the issue we were trying. The reason I bring it up is whether or not this should come into CAN 3.0.
Yeah, so basically, do we break compatibility by making it so if you just write, let's maybe Kevin, what are the pros and cons? Like, why should we remove it and not just keep it? Well, there's a default of 2 arguments.
So I think the pro is that people have to remember that, basically. So you have to remember what those arguments are if you're going to use this syntax. Whereas if you do it explicitly, you can make them whatever you want. So it's just something you have to remember that a lot of people, that I personally forget.
Is is scope and context, are those special keys everywhere? I think they are, but I'm not sure if they are. I'm not sure if they are everywhere or they just are for events argument. We should definitely make those. So then the backwards compatibility would be to write is active context and is active scope.
Is there a difference between whether it uses helper expressions and call expressions, or does it work the same?
It works the same.
Works the same.
If you make this,
whether it uses call expressions or helper expressions?
Yeah.
No, it works differently. Call
if this
expressions
was a call expression, there would be no.
So this is,
arguments don't
this is only an issue with helper expressions, if you're using helper expressions, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So I say we drop
Yes.
helper expressions in 4.0. So that would be my solution.
So yeah, that's not exactly related to this problem right now, but
Well, it is. It's related in that. It's related that maybe it's not worth fixing this specific problem if we're gonna like fix it later a different way, a better way.
yeah. So the pro is, hey, this simplifies the behavior. You know, it could definitely be confusing to people. Like, hey, why is this helper getting arguments? I always expected. I would expect to have no arguments. I think that's a valid reason that it's like the API isn't good, so let's change it. The drawback would be any code that's written this way is going to break. So what I mentioned in the comments is like, fine, if we want to do this, we should make it in the next release of 2.3, very strong warnings for people. Hey, you're doing this, you're calling a helper without any arguments. You should change this to include percent context percent hope if that's what you really want.
Which is probably an argument to
Maybe.
not do this, right? Because that doesn't give people a lot of time to see those warnings.
But it gives people the ability to, okay, I think we should keep releasing as more migration stories come out from people, more like release 2.3 with these kind of warnings. So it's like, oh, hey, I just realized that this is happening in 3.0. When I upgraded to 3.0, I wish I had known this. Then we can go back in another version 2.3 and add a warning, and we can just tell everybody, hey, you want to upgrade to 3.0, upgrade to the latest version of 3.0 or 2.3, fix all of the issues or all of the warnings, and then you can move to 3.0.
Yeah.
The only thing I mean, it's just like how much code legacy do we want to carry around? So I don't know. I don't have a strong opinion actually either way. Especially if someone else is going to do the work to make 2.3 give this warning. Any other strong opinions? No. All right, Kevin, you can flip a coin or make the decision, but don't be wrong.
It got one thumbs up. I don't
Everybody's
know if that's
counting.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's probably not worth it.
Let's.
Be my guess.
Yeah, maybe not worth it.
It's probably not worth it.
I think I have strong opinions about it, but like they only benefit me, so I'm not really thinking about all the people that have to like change their code to match. I like Kevin's idea just because that's how I prefer to use it. But yeah, doesn't.
You're one of those people that would have to update your code, right?
I have very little of that content to update.
Yeah.
Anything else? Any other topics?
Yeah,
All right.
My topic's kind
Yeah,
of
Marshall, I forgot.
it's kind of half baked right now, but I wanted to talk about like Can Connect and Feather's client. So let me share my screen. So Feather's client kind of it kind of exists by accident, I guess you could say. Maybe David had it planned all along to make it happen. But like we basically we kind of found, the way I see it is we kind of found out by accident that it works really well on the client because it basically takes the same like structure and API that exists for Feathers on the server, and makes it, and then makes it work on the client with the exact same API. Just kind of repeating myself there. As you can tell, this is half baked. I actually put together these slides last night while my one of my sons was fevering, so I apologize for any half-bakedness that are in them. That's in it. Anyway, so can connect. So I was going through a few of the, Justin and I discussed some of the issues that it has, and like just some of the things that make it difficult, like from my point of view, to adopt. And this is me comparing to Feather's client, but it has kind of a bigger learning curve than the Feathers client does, mostly because the API is actually more powerful, but it's also different in ways that make it what I would call an invisible API compared to Feathers client, because there's no way to tell which behaviors implement which methods other than by reading the documentation, where it's much more explicit in Feathers client, and I have some slides to show that. And then also the behaviors are divorced from the configuration object that you pass into them. So instead of each behavior just being a function by itself, and you pass things directly into that function, it's kind of separated, where you register the behaviors, and then in a separate section you pass in the configuration. And then also the internal sorting of behaviors is one of those that you and I talked about, Justin. One of the things that I think that kind of handicaps people is that you don't have to learn the right way to put them in, because it kind of takes care of it for you if you put behaviors in the wrong order. So like a dependency comes after where it should be. And then also it has let's just go. Let me just skip these. Let's go back. Let's go here. So the nice thing about the Feathers client is, kind of the opposite of the other problems. The API is really visible. It's not as powerful because it's missing it's missing a key feature of Can Connect, really. And then all the behaviors are actually just functions with they're like a closure function, where you just pass the configuration in, and then you get another function back out. There's no internal sorting of behaviors. Everything is really explicit. Also, the community spans all the major front-end frameworks, which was a big goal for Can Connect. And you have also this fine-tuned ordering of behaviors because of the API. So this diagram is actually what I would like to see. The problem I have is with Can Connect is that the API for me, I don't think I'm really stupid. It's just hard for me to grasp. Maybe I am a little stupid, but so Can Connect is basically all your behaviors. I was trying to make slides where I could compare these in a very succinct way, but I don't know if I'll succeed here. So anyway, you pass in all of your behaviors like this guy. So you bring in all your behaviors. This is still using the old API, obviously, because I'm using strings here. So you bring in all your behaviors. You've got your list of behaviors here, which you pass down to the connect function, I think. Where'd it go? Why don't I see it? Oh, right there. So you pass in your behaviors, and then your configuration is the options object here. Okay, now we actually have it to where we can pass the functions directly, so we don't need to do this stuff. You don't need to pass it in as a string. You can pass it directly that way. What Feathers basically allows you to do is actually pass your configurations in here, and there are some default, kind of how Can Connect has the base wherever it went. Maybe it's implemented by one of these other ones, like constructor or something. Anyway, there are some default configuration things that you can set up on it, but it doesn't. Yeah, but it doesn't have this separation for all the rest of the behaviors that you add in. So with Can Connect, you're basically building out you can build whatever you want pretty much. You can build out whatever. I mean, based on all of the API right here. I mean, it has all these interfaces, official interfaces for defining your API, and then you can build whatever you want out of those. which it's a lot more detailed than what Feather's client has, I think. But I think that's also one of its drawbacks is that, for example, you have to actually register the callbacks, which I think could be something that's just like registered automatically. The callbacks are basically the callbacks. It's like all the functions that you can run after it's talked with the API server or with the remote server type thing is the way I understand it. I was trying to map all these things to like how Feather's client works. Basically, you build out, so this is Feather's client. You have, okay, this part, no, just this, oh yeah, right here. I labeled it. So Feather's client is basically built around, you have a service, which is like the default way you're going to connect to a database or your remote server, whatever kind of server it is, doesn't matter if it's a database. So this is like the connection that you set up. And then there are only 6 methods on that service for the different things, different ways you can talk, RESTful methods. And then you register these hooks before and after, and it's already set up. So all you do is like basically push functions into them. So if you look right here, so if you're going to create a local storage cache behavior for Feathers, it looks like this. You pass in, you have your local storage cache function that's like your predefined library, and then you pass it your options. Those options you then use to build the object that's really hard to see whenever I mouse over it. You build out this object, you get it back, and then same thing over here. It doesn't matter really if they match the service methods or not. It can be custom ones like memory cache just has get item and set item. And then you can use those to pass in these individual functions into this life cycle. So for find, you can say before I do a find, I want to do a get item from the memory store. And after, I'm going to say set item, or you can register, you can specify, it's just an array really. You have an array of before find, an array of after find. You can specify the order. Having that kind of predefined, like this life cycle structure already exists, I think is one of the positives, like one of the pros for using Feather's client. That makes it one of the things, I think that makes it one of the things that let me go back here actually. So last thing is with hooks. So there's aspect-oriented programming. Basically, all these things happen in order from left to right. So whatever you registered in here, like each one of these functions would pass this hook object, kind of like how Express middleware works. But the nice thing about the API is that you can see exactly, because it's just an array with all your hooks in it, you can actually see you can see exactly what's going on, and it's really easy to reorder them. It's just a little bit more difficult than dragging around these little colorful boxes. But the downside to Feather's client is we don't have any kind of official, what I've labeled as like the construct phase. So like this official API for like tapping into like creating your can map, your constructors, and maybe the can ref stuff would fit in there too. But basically creating like this initial object that everything else will be taking advantage of, that doesn't really exist. So basically what I would like to see is an API that kind of builds around this same thing, because it'd be really, really nice, especially for me. I'm always thinking of myself, of course. But it'd be really nice to be able to have, if I could do the work in one place, because I'm already, making caching behaviors and behaviors that utilize other services and other APIs. If I could do that work in one place, because I've already been doing it with Feather's API, because it was simpler for me to wrap my head around. And I'd like to be able to take advantage of that work in both places. So if I create a set of hooks or behaviors for Feather's client, it'll automatically work in Can Connect. And where Feathers already has like this really, really big and diverse API, like developer base community, I just think we could have a lot more fun that way. So I'm not sure how clear any of that was. So this is that's like the end of all of my talking that I had kind of prepared. But what if anybody has any thoughts about that or whatever, we could think about it more. I don't know. Anyway, I'm done.
Yeah. So did he just leave?
Yeah. Click hanging up instead of stop sharing screen.
That's the mic drop right there.
He'll be back.
That was the wrong kind of done. I was supposed to be done sharing my screen, not with the whole damn talk. Okay.
Oh, we got to watch you leave. Once you click the hang up button.
Drop that damn mic. Oh. Okay. So anyway.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, these criticisms, they're not. Well, there's a big echo, Marshall. If you can mute yourself or turn down your volume for a second. Okay, thanks for putting this together, and I think the criticisms are definitely valid points you're making. But I'll get into the reasons why. But I think that the problem, well, one, it's fuzzy to me what you're recommending. Like maybe you're talking about like we could just have a compatibility layer that could take a feathers hook and then just convert it to what the hook would have to look like and do for Can Connect. If you're talking about adopting the feathers way of assembling middleware, I guess I didn't actually like. So when you're putting those boxes and stuff like that, you're like, oh, it's just as easy as these boxes, but you didn't actually like show any code. I guess I'd like to see the code that like actually demonstrates that, because like I feel like if a visual representation is not the same as a code representation, and having written feathers yourself, you might suffer from the same issue that I think I do, which is just it's always easiest to know your own stuff. But I think like, yeah, I guess I don't know what to do with what you're saying other than maybe making a bridge between feathers and Can Connect, because the reality is that it's not too far apart. It just Can Connect is more complex because it has the whole constructor flow to it. You know what I mean? Like it's the same thing where there's the Can Connect is just like the data interface of Can Connect is almost identical. If that's all that Can Connect was, I feel like it'd be almost identical to feathers. The hooks laying out might be a little bit different, but in terms of I would say like mental capacity, it would be about the same. It's when you start adding constructed types, then it gets terrible.
Can those be separated out somehow? Would that be possible?
Well, that's why there's two different interfaces, but no, they can't be separated out, like really because of the fall through cache. It's like there's like a weird boundary condition where they kind of, I mean, they are separate interfaces, but they need to be able to be on one object that can talk to each other. And then the other consideration is like the option stuff, being able to pass in options. Like let's just say we adopted that. Can Connect can already, let me explain what I mean. Like already, I think if we had mix-ins like, oh, you wanted to just do your base Can Connect, and then you were going to wrap it with data URL, and maybe there's too many behaviors, and that's part of the problem where like, data callbacks. Well, maybe that doesn't need to be its own thing, but it kind of does, mostly because data URL like needs to be its own thing, and we wouldn't want to package that in data URL. I guess it could be part of base, or we could just have a base, data. And we could do this, and we could also make it so like what you were saying is all of the options are passed in individually, right? Where you compose it this way. But the one problem that I had with this when I was originally designing it is the algebra is going to have to pretty much be part of all of this. They all would need that algebra. So that's why I basically have it so that everything is written to the base type, and that's where the real configuration is on this base type. And this, to me, with combined with mix-ins, would probably, I think, solve at least a quarter of the issues. But I guess, like, I guess I'd like you to show me what you mean when you're talking about those hooks, like how that makes things more clear. Because you're right, you'd have to read the documentation to know that data URL provides the data interface. I think having a mix-ins that would give you a warning if like data callbacks needed to be built on something with those would go a long way to helping people. But I guess I want to see like what tangibly, what that would look like to be better.
Mm-hmm. I guess it has similar problems still, but for example, here's one of my services. Like these are just the before hooks. So you have this all that gets registered before.
This is you creating a service, or is this creating a behavior?
This is a service right here. Well, this is okay. So we have our
assembly of like equivalent to the assembly of a connection.
Yeah. So basically, we create a service here. This is the connection, and then this is where we run all these hooks before. So if we look at our before hooks, we have before and after hooks. So this is like the life cycle of what's going to happen. Like everything is declared very explicitly, like the order that all this stuff is going to happen. So when you bring these behaviors in, so hooks and service hooks are actually just two like objects that contain multiple behaviors. So you can see I have auth behaviors attached in there as well. So it's just very explicit when I'm creating this. I know exactly where this is going to go next. So it's not so much that like you still have the problem that I can't see exactly everything that auth implements without like debugging.
Well, auth just provides a function, right? It doesn't. Does it implement? Oh wait, is that because it's all?
So yeah, this is just a This is just so basically. Let me see if
so all gets called no matter what is what you're saying. It was what that says.
Yeah. So basically, anything that you put in here, so you could say like.
By the way, delete is delete supported everywhere now, like as a fine property? We really maybe should. I'd love to change CanJS. We could still get that done instead of destroy, delete. But anyways, topic for maybe another 4.0.
I think that's actually supposed to be removed, and I just never actually registered any hooks there, so I never caught it. Right, David?
Oh, okay. Well, delete is a valid keyword in modern browsers, but not all. Not IE6. If you brought like property.delete, like just like that, it would freak out.
So the thing that I like about this API is just being able to see like the individual. So this is like being able to see like what is the auth. So if this is like an auth behavior, for example, I can see like what exactly am I going to be doing with that behavior instead of having it hidden behind the interface that's like the callbacks and the.
Do you want to show how you can implement the functions that you pass there? How they look? Yeah.
So when you create a hook here, actually, let's just go.
I think you showed this in his presentation, what a hook looks like, right? Didn't you?
A little bit, yeah.
That's...
So let's see if we got one here.
What you showed in the presentation looked almost exactly like a connect behavior.
Oh, built-in hooks. Source hooks hash password. So basically, here's our outer function. Returns in Feathers right now. It's typical for it to only return one function. Like each hook is individual, but you could just as easily return an object with 5. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so you pass in your options. Those options get used inside this function, and then that's basically it. So yeah, it's really it's like I said in that original slide. It's really, we're pretty much doing the same thing. The only thing that I think that Feathers has to its advantage is, oh, I got a visitor. Only thing it has to its advantage is that this part right here is already like predefined. So
That's the same with can't connect though.
well, it is kind of predefined, but one example of how it's not is like when you register the, where was that? This guy? I think it's data callbacks, because you don't actually have any of those callbacks until you add that behavior in, right?
Correct.
And the callbacks is basically all.
Wait, you don't have any what? You don't have the destroyed data. You can't. There's not a hook for that.
Yeah,
you have those as after hooks.
Yeah, those are basically like, I saw those as like the equivalents to the after hooks. 1 second, let me get rid of the invader.
I wonder if part of it is part of the difference. I kind of agree with Marshall that those, at least when I see those hooks, they look a little bit clearer to me. I wonder if that the naming is part of it. That kind of the can connect hooks are named what the method is that you use, whereas these are more like, I guess, the life cycle phase. Does that make sense? What if the naming helps?
This part right here, for example. So this is one of the limitations of can connect, is I pass in this behavior, and the order kind of does matter. That's why it's sorting internally. So we have like our data callbacks. Let's just put it like this. We pass in our configuration object here. So data callbacks in this case comes before combined requests and all these other things. But we don't really have a way that I know of to, like a simple way, maybe it does exist, to say like.
Is there anything persistent in, oh, go ahead.
Okay. We don't have a simple way to, so for example here, I'm specifying the order. Like if that's the only way we can specify order is this single list of behaviors when you originally pass it in. The problem we have here is now we have, say, okay, so let's just say local storage and memory. We pass those in to can connect in that order. Well, how do those run after? You know, you can tap into those different callback names, but
well, that's what. Go ahead. There's another behavior for that with that's there's the what is it? It's the, where is it? Maybe it's not documented. There's the one that, there's the calls back the cache. There's like a cache, oh, the callbacks cache, there it is. It's just blind.
Callbacks.
This is what,
Callbacks cache.
So there's like, this listens to the actual data callbacks and then makes sure that the cache connections methods are going to be called appropriately. I mean, how do you, so what I mean by that is, what you have some way is like, you must have some way is like, once you have caching mechanisms you set up, right? Like local storage or something, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So the save happens, right? And then you have an after hook, right? Marshall? Did I lose everybody or did we lose him? Can you hear me?
I can definitely hear you. I can't hear Marshall. Please talk now.
I think Marshall's gone. Well, anyway, well, I'll fill Marshall in, but just what I was going to say is, okay, there we go. Marshall's back. Okay.
There we go.
Let me say what I was going to say. So, Marshall, when you must every one of your behaviors, like your memory or local storage caching ability, probably is implementing itself internally, my version of the callbacks cache. What I mean by that is you listen to when data is created, and then you need to somehow update your cached set of data, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the mechanism that just listens to, let's say, whenever data is created, and then calls back create data on the cache connection. So the cache connection, by the way, is your caching connections, your caching, is that set up as a behavior or as a connection itself, or your equivalent of that?
The cache connection is basically another service that the hooks use inside.
So it has its own version of, yeah. So that's what this is doing, is it's basically connecting the kind of callbacks for one service into methods on another service. That's what callback cache does. And presumably, if you don't have this as kind of a standalone thing, you're probably putting this code individually in every one of your like local storage and memory cache kind of version of behaviors. Like this code has to exist for you. You might have just shoved it in these. And maybe that's a problem with Can Connect in general, is I just basically split everything out and made every little thing do only what it should be doing. And if anything could be shared or reused, it was put into its own behavior.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's hyper.
And maybe that's a problem.
It's a plus and a minus.
Yeah.
No?
Now, what I do think that is good from from Feather's client, and I think Matthew mentioned it too, is that you have, one thing is you just simplified it, or maybe you've not simplified it, you made these things like part of the interface. You've made the pre and post part of the like known established life cycle. It's like defined. It's kind of like almost its own interface, right? Like these have their own there's a defined interface that kind of everything complies to, but there's not a post interface. There's just this method. There's no pre and there's no post. There's just these methods, and you just overwrite them.
Uh-huh.
Right? So but you can also overwrite the method itself, right? In Feathers, you implement the method, right?
You're talking
What's
about
the difference, by the way, in Feathers? You can implement the service phase, right?
Yeah, the service phase, basically the service phase has kind of like a construct-like, you can do a similar thing as the construct-like thing that Can Connect's doing right now. So you can like override methods and.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the thing, is Connect doesn't have like defined pre and post mechanisms. It just has these defined methods, and the pre and post methods. Well, there is no pre. The pre is you pretty much just like overwrite the, you overwrite the method to call the base method, because there really doesn't need to be a pre. And for the post is the way you do a post is basically you're implementing one of the data callbacks methods, and you make sure somebody else pulled in the data callbacks method, and this is there. We could just make data callbacks part of the data interface and happen no matter what, right? This is just part of Can Connect, and then we could call these like post created, and instead of like using past tense, the naming could follow better convention.
Is there a GIF or a JPEG that illustrate how the methods work together? So for me, it's very confusing because I don't know which callback or which method is behind or before or after some other method. Is there a diagram, something like that illustrate that a little bit better?
No. And I don't know if a method, like a diagram. So the thing is what Feathers is, it basically forces you to in some ways put that diagram in your own code.
Yeah.
Now with that, now let's just say we assumed can connect was going to be hypermodule. Would you want to write, instead of now, which you just have to get the ordering right of maybe like 10 modules, now you're gonna have to get the ordering right of 10 modules times like each one of the data interface methods potentially. Times like 6 or 7. Plus all of the constructor or the instance interface methods plus 4. So you're talking about like 40 lines of code. No, if there's like 10 modules and there's like, let's just say there's the data interface, you're using the big 5 plus the instance interface 4. You're talking about 90 lines of code to potentially assemble 10 modules.
Yeah.
And, it's explicit then. Then it is explicit. You would literally see like, you know, in from the constructor, you know, you'd see from get list, in from connection get list, then get list is going out to, you know, well, this is the entry point, and then it's going to hit like the fall through cache first, or it's going to hit the constructor. It's going to hit the, yeah, it's probably going to hit can map, and then it's going to hit this, and it's going to hit this, and it's going to hit this. Like you would literally see, then it's going to switch to the instance interface, and you would literally see like every method that's going to hit in order. Maybe one thing we could do is give people this information. Like we could just make it easy to see like, hey, you know, what is, you know, maybe if you had a connection, maybe you could just write connection dot like trace get list, right? And that would just like tell you all of the behaviors and list the methods, so you could just like see them all lined up in order.
Which would that would definitely help with the problem. So I think I mean, that's a good point, that you do end up explicitly adding in like each individual function into like whatever your like master behavior is in order to compose like the overall picture. But with like what I've noticed with feathers is that we don't have like I've not ever seen anybody complain about it being too complex. It's just so easy to grasp.
You have half the complexity. Let's just, no matter what, right? Because you don't have constructor, you don't have typed data, right?
Right. Yeah. So what I really would actually like to see, I guess my real proposal is like the construct API is where you get like all your powerful stuff with your typed data, especially, but you can also do some other things in there that don't really fit inside this life cycle right here. So basically, like can connect is still, I see it as like, I wouldn't want it to go anywhere because I want to be able to use it for this. I mean, I created the CanJS feathers package just as a, like trying to figure out it as an experiment if I could make a can connect like thing out of feathers client. And, you know, we don't have any of the official, like, we don't have an official API for like this phase right here. So it was just kind of a mess of code that I made for this part. But then tapping into all this part was really, this API is just beautiful. The aspect-oriented stuff is just more straightforward for this part of the life cycle than the constructor part. So what I would like to see is the marriage of the two APIs, where can connect, we're still using it to define this, and we can still use it to define this because the construct API works really awesome there. But that we basically implement.
What do you mean? Sorry, I kind of lost what you're.
So right now with like our behaviors and how we're constructing the behaviors in can connect, right? But it's mostly good for. Look, I mapped it out here somewhere. Okay, so basically like the construct phase, these are the things that really take advantage of it. As far as like mapping can connect to feathers. These are the things that don't really fit anywhere.
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm just saying, these are the things that don't really fit anywhere in feathers. This construct phase right here, where you're like building out,
fall through cache belongs there too, I think.
Why would that be?
Because the fall through cache has to access the constructed types to be able to update them post receiving the fall through data.
Oh, right. Okay, so that's where this part comes in right here. So we have like this hook object that gets passed to all these hooks. And those include things like, which method you're on, whether it's before or after, whatever data, if you're posting data, the params, the query. So this is like what's actually getting sent to find and get here. Well, I guess even for some of the other ones. So the actual query parameters, we could pass in also like the map or whatever you want to call it. Some of the construct. Basically, we can add to this. The way Feathers does it is, you can set up an express middleware, and anything that you set up on the, what is it? I think it's rec.feathers. Is that right, David? Rec.feathers is an object, and anything that you merge into that object ends up inside of these, like gets passed in on this hook.params. So if you have rec.feathers and you pass in like your map like this, and you say it's your like defined map of some sort, then you'll end up with in here, you'll end up with this map property right here that all of your hook functions can then access, to be able to like tie into that stuff that you already set up in the construct phase. Did I lose everybody?
No, I'm listening to you.
Oh, okay. So that is so anyway, I really like the power of the Can Connect API, but I don't like to use it for this life cycle right here. Is the only drawback to it. Is it's much more like you said earlier, it's kind of like self-diagramming code when you can just like pop things into arrays and like know exactly what order they're going to happen in. So basically what I would like to see is the marriage of the two APIs where we have a like more explicit, kind of what you're saying with the like having the callbacks being registered automatically. But if we just use this exact API or came as close to this as we can possibly get, then we'll have the advantage of being able to like structure these things as well. Make more complex behavior. We still have the same problem of like if you have an existing behavior, if you want to turn it off, either like implement it yourself. I mean, if you have like a overall like model, like this whole thing implemented somewhere, like modifying that can be more difficult. Sometimes you have to just start over and just start with the pre-existing code base and duplicate everything and customize it. But I still think it would solve a lot of the current issues to have basically this AO.
Would you not have just two APIs then? Like I guess that's like wouldn't you just what it sounds to me is that instead of like would you just have the same problem with the construct side of things?
Yeah, but I almost would never have to use
them. Then you have two different APIs.
Yeah, okay. I mean, technically still have them, but you almost
not true with like a lot of the CanJS behaviors people make are more around like autosave and things like that than necessarily on the data side of things.
Right. So that would go in with like making things for the construct phase, but then things like anything that involves caching, almost anything that involves caching or like even talking to other services fit better in this phase, I think. And then things like the URL behavior doesn't really belong here either. Well, I mean, it works there just fine, obviously, because we're doing it. But like the URL behavior is more of like inside this phase. So I guess this is kind of like a spec for having more.
But do you get what I'm saying though, Marshall? It's like now you have, instead of like one API to do everything with Can Connect, now there's like two APIs.
Yeah,
there's like this hooks way, but then if you wanted to deal with the construct, there's a whole different way.
Yeah, I guess really the whole need for this for me came up just because the current API I can't grasp, and so like
what can't you grasp about it?
I still haven't made my own behavior. I've seen you make one, and I've now seen I've seen Alexis's from yesterday that they made, but like it's just a more difficult API for me to use. I don't know. I honestly, might not be the sharpest tool
I
ever.
mean,
It's just a simple.
well, don't say. I mean, I don't really think they're any different. I mean, I think they're pretty much the same. You label your behavior ABC, and then you take in the base behavior. And then there's just if you're looking for the equivalent of making a behavior in feathers in terms of complexity that's allowed and can connect, then there's just those methods. There's those 5 big methods that matter: get list data, get data. And all you do is you comply to their API. So this takes a set, this takes the parameters, and it returns a promise. And it can do whatever it wants on the base behavior. So like if you call ABC on top of some other behavior, that's all it is. So then, yeah. It's like you can decide whether you want to do a pre or post. A pre hook looks like this. Pre stuff, then you're going to do, once the pre stuff is done, then you might want to do base behavior, that get list data. That's what pre behavior looks like. Post behavior looks like you're good. Actually, this is pre behavior. Post behavior would be the opposite. You're going to get your base, and then you're going to do this. And then you're going to do post stuff. And you're going to return that. Right? And that's it.
I guess I'm just maybe too attached to the just list everything in an array, and I don't know, it's just so much simpler to get everything in the order you want when you can just put it in a list.
So isn't that exactly what, isn't that exactly what's happening with when you put things in a list like you do with can connect? Like you're not putting individual methods, but the same list applies. Like it's the same, this ABC's get list data. I guess the thing is you don't know whether it's pre or post. I guess that's the difference. Is like these behaviors can decide whether they're pre or post themselves, and maybe that's what it is.
Yeah. How do I make something run before local storage on the way in, before local storage on the way in for find for the get list data, for example. So for get list data,
yeah,
or another one, but after on the way back out. But then for a different method, I have it run in a different order for some reason. Like I need certain caches to happen at certain times, and so I want to compose behavior that's not exactly in the same order as what I passed in. That's the part I just don't get how to do.
Yeah, because it's not explicitly listed out.
So
because you don't know whether these are pre's or posts, essentially. You don't know whether ABC is setting up, if something else is, let's just say this is data URL. ABC decides for itself pre or post. But in general, that's kind of what most things should decide for themselves if they're pre or post. But I don't know. I get what you're saying.
There's lots of stuff to think about here, and I don't want to waste any more time.
I guess it's fine. Other people can drop off if they're busy with other stuff. We can. I'm fine talking about this because it's important. Why do you want to know? Why do you care? Why isn't it good enough to just say cache stuff in local storage? And that will do it. Why is it important enough to say data URL? Why is it important enough to say well, I got data URL, and then I'm going to cache stuff in local storage. Why this module can know to be a pre or a post based on what's providing the get list data and decide, or do pre and post stuff, which definitely happens in some of these behaviors. I think that's why like maybe get list is so, do you have pre and posts? And you just write it twice? Do you have behaviors that need to be pre and post?
Yeah, some are.
And you just list it twice? You just have like two different methods and stuff?
I just have a, well, sometimes you can just create one method and you can detect because you pass whatever the hook object has like a type on it, so you know if it's before or after. But anyway, yeah, you basically have to register it in both places. But for example, like that parse pennies example that I showed a little while ago, if I want to add like a parse pennies
Which
thing,
example?
so
Parse
this
pennies.
parse pen, yeah, it's more like value. It's more valuable on a server than a
Sean.
client.
Thanks for coming.
But like, let me show my screen again. When I want to add something like this, and then, like I said, this isn't like a super awesome example because you could do this inside of like your construct layer, inside your constructor. Anyway, is probably a better place for this, but with the server, I don't really have things like that. But just, this is an example. So parse pennies, I just want to throw this in there to where I'm like modifying some either parameters or some of the data as it's going out to the service. So I throw this in there. In the current can connect API, I'm doing basically, where is it? Right here. So I import my parse pennies, and then let's say I want it to run, you know, before whichever of these. So we come in here and say parse. Apparently GitHub doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, I think the essential thing is that it's not, and what you just said there, can connect is not about the order of when things are going to run and how behaviors are applied. It's more of like an onion is the application order of behaviors that matters. It's like you start with your nugget in the center, which is often going to be like data URL, which is you're gonna like start with like what is the most essential like root get data thing that needs to happen. Okay, that's data URL. Now because you're basically gonna be working on the data interface at first. So you're gonna finalize your data interface. What other things does the data interface need? Well, maybe we want parse data. Okay, now we have the data URL and we can do fun parsing. This is a post. This is like what you would call a service. This is a post hook, right? Now maybe now there's another post hook that you would definitely want to call after the parse data has run, which is data callbacks. Okay, now this is post as well. Now maybe there's a pre for data URL, but I don't know. But let's just say there was like something pre. But you wanted that. You know, you probably could run that right here because all of these are posts. But I think the problem is, what I'm hearing is that these behaviors, it's undefined. There's just a method, and they just either add themselves before or after. And to the outer user, there is no, you just really don't know. You would just kind of have to know how they, you know nothing how they necessarily work, so that you have no idea really where, you don't even know where to start on where you should apply the other behaviors. Exactly. At least in Feathers, you're given some kind of like roadmap where it's like, this stuff is before. Okay, fine. Then I'm like, my problem set is split in two. Right? Before, during, or whatever, after. I don't know. Whatever. What do you call it for the middle one?
Oh, it's just the service itself. So the service was the original thing. We decided we wanted these like arrays of functions to run before and after. So that's the API we got.
Yeah. So the good thing is like, yeah, you would see after is like, this would be data URL. And this would be parse data callbacks. Even though you wouldn't really need that because in some ways after is data callbacks, but whatever.
Yeah.
Maybe
That's an infinite loop.
Yeah. So let me look at where's my list of behaviors again.
This kind of goes back to basically what you were saying like a week ago about like we need middleware, beforeware, afterware. You know, middleware is just the wrong term.
We need yeah. So well, that's what in some ways Can't Connect is actually only middleware. It is like it decides whether it goes before or after, but there's one API and it's just overwriting. And it handles it itself. Yeah, I mean that's the nice thing is like yes, this is explicit and people people can see what they want to do. Oh, Marshall just oh no, he's still here. I guess everyone else is dropping. Yeah, take it easy. Julian, good to see you.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I really, it's nice that it reduces the problem set in two. I think in reality, well, I don't know. I guess that's fine if that's what like, it's more work for a user to set this up for sure, but I guess it's going to add clarity.
See, that's the thing.
I just want to look at.
I think that's exactly.
You have nothing. Like, hold on. Yeah, but hold on a second. I really want to look at local storage because like that's just like such a. I'd really want to see the fall through cache. Well, my concern is how do you handle then? How do you handle stuff like calling? How do you handle the fall through cache plus like yeah, how do you handle the fall through cache combined with non-deterministic caching mechanisms? Meaning, how would you deal with the fall through cache if you want to use either the memory cache or the you want to use the memory cache or the or a local storage cache.
Mm-hmm. So that's the example I built right here. Let me see if I can find it. Feathers.
But you've got to do it with the data interface, right? Like that's the important thing, too, right? It's
yeah. So first of all, I came in. Can you see my screen? Is it big enough?
Yeah.
So I added like the store property. Where is it? Like this setup model store with cache, for example. Those would be like basically things that I would register in that construct phase, because that's basically what's going on. Like we're setting up the original, like we're modifying the original constructor or adding to it in some way. Then down.
What do you mean by constructor, by the way?
So like the map,
like
there's a map, the defined map that you're passing in.
Oh, but that's a separate. That's not how Can Connect really works.
So, but basically,
like it does modify it. You're talking about in the construction of your connection.
In the construction
for the construction of your connection.
Of your, well, basically, what I'm doing is I'm taking you pass in like a regular Can map, for example, or a defined map, and then it just mixes that. You know, it adds this store property onto. Yeah. I don't know exactly where it adds it anymore now. Anyway, it modifies your original map, and then you just have these functions down here. So here's our service before. So we do our cache find and cache get. And for these are just functions that, in this case, we're passing our cache options. Let's go back out here. Let me show you the API.
But that's not the fall through cache though. This is the more like the constructor store cache, which is a different thing. Right?
Well, no, this part, let me see here. Service.cache options. So there's two different ones I created. One, you can, let's see, open the tests and finish the docs. Socket.io. Local storage, kit session.
I'm gonna have to. We're gonna have to stop in like a few minutes because I realize I haven't done status with everybody.
Yeah. Oh, and I do need some help.
But I guess we can do it at. Huh?
I do need some help anyway. Actually, I ran into an issue last night that I can't figure out why it's happening.
Okay.
So
Let's, hold on, Marshall. I'm gonna conclude the. I'm gonna conclude this broadcast because I think that it's. I think we've gotten into the weeds enough here.
Yeah.
Went a little bit beyond what these normal meetings are supposed to go. So, hey, Sarath, you still join us? We're gonna take off. Probably move this discussion somewhere else. We'll post the results.
Maybe I need
thanks
to
for coming.
Yeah, maybe I need to have a one-on-one session with you sometime.
Yeah.
Maybe you can just
Definitely schedule. Yep, absolutely, we'll do that. So yeah, this will conclude this extremely long. Normally these are supposed to be like 30 minutes to 45 minutes. Extremely long contributors meeting. Thanks everybody for coming and watching. If anybody's watched to this point, and see you all next week.
Bye, Marshall.